Do you have a mind for sales? That's the topic of this week's episode of the Sales Hunter podcast. My name's Mark Hunter. And of course, I've written the book, A Mind for Sales, but I want to go down deeper today. What I want to talk about are the two things that hold the majority of salespeople back from achieving the next level. So, hey, let's get into it. The show begins right now.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a sales leader sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
Hey, I said the topic was a mind for sales, and I want to dive into the two things that hold the majority of salespeople back. And that is, very simply put, accountability and priority management. Accountability and priority management. Now, you notice I didn't say time management because we don't have a time management problem. We have a priority management problem. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is what holds the majority of salespeople back. I want to walk you through a series of situations and think about this for a moment. Is this you? Are you guilty of pipeline stuffing? Are you guilty of turning your pipeline into a sewer pipe? Why? Because you're trying to appease your boss. You're trying to appease management. You see, what are you doing? You're not willing to be held accountable. Are you willing to sit there and say, I'm not going to bother to follow up with this customer? There's no opportunity there. I'm not willing to go do this. Really what you're saying is, I'm not willing to be accountable. And you know what this also is a reflection of is priority management. You see, here's the situation. And I find this so often. We don't allow ourselves to be held accountable to other people. Uruguay is checking in. Great to hear from you, Bernardo. Great. And this is a great subject. Thank you. And hey, if you're watching, go ahead and chime in. Let me know where you're calling in from. Because again, as Charles says, quality leads over quantity. See, this is the whole thing. See, again, you're not willing to be held accountable if what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I'm just going for quantity. Because quantity somehow has you believing that, well, there's just enough stuff in there. But again, this comes back to priority management. Here's the situation. If you are not willing to be held accountable, and when I mean accountable, and the examples I've given are really to your boss, but accountable to somebody else. I was speaking to a sales organization the other day, and I shared with the salespeople, I said, your objective is to find a peer in this organization, find another salesperson who you are willing to be held accountable to. You're willing to share with them what are your objectives. They're willing to share with you what their objectives are. And you hold each other accountable. This is absolutely key. Here's why. Fayetteville, Arkansas is chiming in today. Great to have you, Gayla. Hey, here's the situation. If you are not willing to be accountable to other people, why should your customer be accountable to you? You see, I just hit a sore spot there. You see, customers are accountable to us when we're delivering them value, when we're delivering them benefits that they can benefit from. Right now, I am working on several major opportunities, several big opportunities. And we've had a series of conversations going back and forth. And on one of them, it was a situation that we had to find time to talk. And I reached back out to the customer. I said, hey, we got to get time to talk. And you know what? He responded back and said, you're right, we do. You see, because that person knows that I put a little level of time and effort into developing a plan for them. And they know that I'm going to help benefit them. So guess what? You see, there's a level of accountability. Accountability cuts both ways. Accountability is you sharing with somebody else, a peer. Now, I highly recommend this peer come from within your company, but it may not be. Just today, I was having a mastermind accountability call. A mastermind accountability with four other people that I'm actually held accountable to. And we spent a few minutes going through sharing what was of value to us and what we wanted to make sure we would accomplish in the coming months. And we're going to hold each other accountable. You see, this is how we vault to the next level, because it is so easy for us to sit there and say, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll get to it. Or if I don't achieve this, it's okay. The sun will still come up in the morning. You're right. The sun's still going to come up in the morning, but are you willing to do what it takes? You see, a mind for sales is about just that. having a mind for sales. And what that means is that I'm dialed in and I'm focused and I'm not willing to accept excuses. I was on the phone today with one of my peers, and one of my peers, we shared something. And even before I was off the call, she, Meredith Elliott Powell, who you probably know from Sales Logic, had already started the process by passing that along to another person who we said we need to get in touch with. You see, there was no delay whatsoever. You see, because she knows that she's accountable to me and I'm accountable to her. And what does that do? It ups both of our games. This is why mastermind groups are so important. In fact, it's one of the reasons Meredith Elliott Powell and I have started the Sales Logic Mastermind. In fact, I'll make sure that we put the link in the show notes, okay? So you can check this out on the podcast, because I do want you to, because accountability is going to automatically up your game to the next level. And what is it also going to do? It's going to help you from a priority management perspective. Now, here's the situation. Everybody loves to sit there and say, oh, time management. I don't have enough time to get things done. Well, guess what? We all have 24 hours in a day. Why is it that some people are able to accomplish more than others? It's because they choose to use their time differently. And it's all about being priority focused. Here's the situation. So many of us allow ourselves to become consumed with just busy work. Well, this is what I've always done. Fine, and I love repetition. If you've ever read the book Atomic Habits, you'll know that that book is built around success resulting from having habits that you routinely, regularly do. I understand that. But it's making sure you're focused on the right thing. And that's being priority focused. It's one of the reasons I love to talk about what I call the 10 a.m. rule. Now, in my book, A Mind for Sales, I talk about it as being the pizza rule, okay? If you've read my book, A Mind for Sales, you'll know it as the pizza rule. But what this book is, what this idea is, the 10 a.m. rule, it's all about, is that you set your smartphone to go off at 10 a.m. Now, this isn't the time you wake up in the morning, but this is the time that when your alarm goes off at 10 a.m., you will have accomplished something significant. You see, you review your goals, you review your objectives, you review what you need to get done today, and you make sure that you've accomplished something significant before 10 a.m. And for the majority of people, this means prospecting. This means prospecting. Why? Because prospecting is what keeps your pipeline alive. Prospecting is what gives you the deals to close. Prospecting is what allows you to eat. And when you fail to prospect, it's amazing how everything else falls apart. But see, what happens is people get into this mindset that they're busy and they don't have time to prospect. You see, when really what they're having a problem with is priority. They're busy because they're doing things that they should not be doing because they're not focused on their number one priorities. So what I want you to do, and this is a very simple activity. Take all the things that you're going to accomplish tomorrow. Just go ahead and do this right now. Take a piece of paper and jot down all the things that you're going to accomplish tomorrow. And then what I want you to do is I want you to start numbering them, 1 through whatever. Not how they appear on your calendar, not how they appear on your calendar. Because again, you may have a lot of meetings on your calendar for tomorrow. Fine, great. But you've got other things you need to get done. And then what I want you to do is I want you to look at what is the most important thing on that list. What's the most important thing? That's the thing that you get done first. I fell victim to this. I fell victim because I had a very high priority item that I failed to keep my eye on the ball with. And as a result, I didn't get to it initially. I didn't get to it for several days. Oh, frustrating. Here I am talking on the topic, and yet I fell short. You see, this is why we have to prioritize the hunt. I love that comment, Charles. Thank you for adding that in. Prioritize the hunt, right? You prioritize prospecting. Now, I've always been very good about prioritizing prospecting. But see, there are other things that I tend to fall down on. This would happen to be a follow-up on something. I closed this deal, but there was some piece of information I owed this client. And I allowed a couple of days to fall. You see, here's the situation. We fall victim to believing that we're too busy. Well, we are too busy because we're doing things that don't add up to creating revenue or goals. In my book, A Mind for Sales, I talk about R&G, revenue and goals. And the only two things that you can really be focused on are things that are going to create revenue for you, help you close deals, or help you achieve your goals. Now, and really in essence, the two line up together. But see, like goals might be that you need to update an installation manual, or it might be that you need to do some cleaning in your CRM system, taking some things out. So that would be based on your goals. Because again, what you're trying to do is you have to, well, or it might be a goal that you need to achieve a certain certification level for a certain program to be able to sell something. Fine, that's a goal. A goal might be that you have a goal to read 10 books or 5 books, whatever. That's a goal. And revenue, of course, we know what that is. That's driving business. And if the stuff you're doing, and surprisingly enough, I want you to stop and ask yourself this question: where's social media fall? Where does social media fall in that? If social media is not driving revenue or helping you achieve your goals, and oh, by the way, you can't take clicks and likes to the bank, why are you spending time on social media? Over the years, I have slowed the amount of time I spend on social media. Yes, I have. Now, you're going to notice that you probably see me out on social media a lot. You're right. But I'm out there for very short bursts, just 2-3 minutes. That's it. That's it. And I'm not taking my prime time of the day to do that. You see, what I'm doing is I'm prioritizing. I'm making sure that my priorities remain focused. If somebody is sitting there saying, "Oh, I spend the first 30 minutes of every day on social media," I'm going to call them out right there. That's wrong. That is wrong. Because I have to believe that you probably got something that's of a higher priority, probably following up with a customer, making prospecting calls, working on a contract, doing something, a proposal, whatever it might be. That's undoubtedly going to be a higher priority than spending 30 minutes on social media. You see, so what it is we're prioritizing, and one of the ways that I suggest doing this is you take your day and you start chunking it. You segment the day into various blocks, and you allow sets of time. Because again, this is what I find: the most productive people allocate time to each task. Because here's what's amazing, and I see this with high performers, especially high performers will allocate only a certain amount of time. And you know what's interesting? When you only have a certain amount of time, it's amazing what you get done. You may have a flight tomorrow. Okay, we'll say you're off to Cancun tomorrow, or you're going to the Caribbean, or you're going on a great vacation to Paris, whatever it might be. But you know what? You know that when that flight leaves at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, you've got to be on that flight. You have to be on your flight. And in turn, you arrange all your priorities. You make sure that you've got your luggage packed. You make sure that you've got your passport. You make sure you've got everything that you need. You see, what you're doing is you're managing your priorities to fit the ultimate priority of getting on that plane. This is the same thing with your customers. This is the same thing with prospecting. You got to take that ultimate goal. So that ultimate goal might be, I need to have a pipeline that is 4x what I intend to close. In other words, what that's saying is everything that's in my pipeline, I may sit there and only be able to close 25% at any given moment in time. Fine. So I got to have a 4x pipeline. So then I begin backing myself in and saying, what are those activities I got to do to create that? That's keeping your focus on the priority. You see, when we do this, it is amazing at how much more we're able to get done. Because also what happens then is you begin offloading things. Now you say, "Mark, I don't have anybody to offload it to. My company hasn't given me an administrative assistant. Fine, you know what? But you know what? Then you realize what doesn't need to be done. Because so many times what happens is there's stuff that doesn't need to be done that we're caught up doing. You see, that's the priority. Now here's the situation. You say, I don't know if I can do that. That's where you revert over to the accountability. Because what's interesting is many times we look at something and we feel it's a priority. But if I've got an accountability partner, a mastermind, somebody who I can lean into and share, they're going to help me see things differently. They're going to help reinforce. They're going to help give me the confidence I need to say, hey, I should not be spending my time in that. You see, this is why I say priority management and accountability go hand in hand. And when you master those two, it is amazing how you wind up having a mind for sales. Because what happens is you're now more focused on sales. You are now. I was with a company. The other day, and many companies go through this: the quarterly business review, the quarterly customer business calls, top to top meetings, whatever you want to call them. And what I find is that it's a priority. It's a priority. Great, fine, okay. I can't change that, but maybe I can change how I prepare for them, how the work I do, because if the work I'm doing isn't delivering business, why am I doing it? Oh, but I have to do it. Okay, fine. Then talk to my accountability partner about it. Talk to my mastermind about it. And see what you begin to say is, wait a minute, here's a different way of looking at it. Because so many times what happens is we are absolutely focused in on this is how we do it. This is no different than you may have a certain route that you take to go to work. You may have a certain route that you take to go to the airport or whatever it might be. But what I find is this. That may be what you think, but suddenly you go with somebody else and suddenly it changes. I typically drive to the airport. John, register. Great to have you on. I like the analogy of packing for a trip. You're right. We manage the priorities to make the trip flight. Yes. Here's something very, very interesting. I love driving myself to the airport, but occasionally I take Uber. And what I find is sometimes the Uber driver takes a different route. I don't jump in and say, oh, what are you taking this route for? No, I want to see. Because again, you know what? I may learn something different. This is what I mean. I'm not necessarily beholden to the absolute activities I do because I'm always open to find better ways. And again, this is about always reassessing your priorities. And you've got to be continuously reassessing them. Right now, we're recording this, and we're just about 3 weeks into the third quarter of the year. As you listen to us on podcast, it might be a little further downstream for you. But what I want you to do is I want you to say, okay, where do I stand for the third quarter? Where's my business at? What are the priorities I need to change? And to help me do that, who am I accountable to? You see, this goes back and forth so much. I can't stress this enough. But the top performing salespeople all are absolutely focused on these two things. Accountability, and it's why we now have the Sales Logic Mastermind, and I'll put the link in the show notes as soon as we get done with the show here. And two, priority management, not time management, priority management. Because here's the other thing. Don't think that you can work yourself to completion. Don't think you can work yourself to completion. You can't. You can work yourself to exhaustion, but you can't work yourself to success. Charles Darby, I love your comment. I think this is the importance of not falling in the autopilot trap in sales. You're right. See, this is one of the reasons that you need to always be assessing your cadence. You may have a great cadence, maybe a 10, 15, 20-step cadence, but you've got to be continuously assessing that. Now, do yourself a favor. Don't sit there and throw the baby out with the bathwater. See, if I'm going to reassess my cadence, what do? I hold myself accountable to somebody else. What do they say? What do they think? What does this do? This helps me think at a deeper level. It helps me think at a higher level. It helps me uncover intelligence that goes beyond who I am. Hey, what is this about? It's about a mind for sales. And really what we're talking about here is how you step yourself up to the next level. And if you haven't picked up the book, A Mind for Sales, I very strongly suggest you grab a copy of it and you read it. Let me know what you think of it. I'm also going to post in the show notes here a link to join us in the Sales Logic mastermind. Hey, you've been listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. What is it? It's 2 episodes a week, one a shorter one and one typically just a single topic with a guest. But hey, today I happen to be my own guest. Is that okay? Yeah. What is it about? It's about helping you sell. It's about helping you see and achieve what you didn't think was possible. Gee, you know what? That's my definition of sales. That's my definition of leadership. I do hope that you take the time to subscribe to the Sales Hunter podcast. And please, would you leave me a review? Leave me a review on the favorite podcast app that you download all your podcasts from. I want you to join me back right here for the next episode of the Sales Hunter podcast. I'm Mark Hunter. Great selling.